This is Andy Reistetter on a journey to Olympic golf, and I am here in San Salvador, El Salvador, with Perry Dye. And just for the record, I am not his internet date. There's been rumors about. We just met for the first time.
That is correct.
It's awesome to be here with you. I want to just go back and tell me a little bit about your grandfather. He really started the Dye family in the golf business.
It's a very interesting story about how we got into the golf business, because it was kind of like a car like yours.
A car like Torch.
The torch is, and I thought you kept saying don't bring the torch. I thought you were going to bring the torch to the restaurant tonight. And so his car broke down, and he was introduced to the Greenbrier, and a PGA pro put a golf club in his hand. He learned how to play golf because it took 3 days to fix the car. He came home and decided to build a golf course on his farm. So, kind of like how you get around the world with a broken down car. That's why I'm in the golf business, because of a broken down car. It's a true story.
It's amazing things happening. So, tell me a little bit about your grandfather, his passion for the game, and also constructing. He built a golf course, right?
Pink was a traveler. I mean, the Dyes are travelers. You can kind of tell we spent a little time on the road. But they used to say his name was Paul Francis Dye. They called him Pink. They said that Pink has seen more lighthouses than most people had seen telephone poles. So he was a traveler.
Pink was in back then, like Bubba Watson's driver.
He also ran for governor of Ohio. He was postmaster general. Quite a character, and owned a bar called the Brass Rail, which I used to stand on top of and tell jokes, but at a very young age.
The bar or the rail?
He said, no, on top of the bar. And I can't remember the joke I used to tell, but it was quite something. Everybody thought it was funny, or they were drunk. I'm not really sure, but I was about 6 or 7. So he put me up in the bar like that and to tell jokes. But he loved the game of golf, and he built 9 holes in a town of 6,000 people. And 80 years later, my brother built the second 9, so it is our longest project. El Salvador's competing for that, but that's our longest project. It's 80 years to finish a golf course. And there were 6,000 people when he built the first 9, and 6,000 people when they built the second 9. So it's a town never ever expanded that much. It was a lot of companies kind of went. International Harvester. A lot of major companies from that area had left that area, but it's back to 6,000. It is still our hometown where my dad's from. He married my mom, who was from Indianapolis. I grew up in Indianapolis. Most of the family was from Ohio. But he loved the game of golf, and he built this 9 holes, and he and his brother maintained it. And so, I mean, they took care of the grass, and especially during World War II, when everybody who was a little bit older got drafted, they took care of the golf course during that era. And somewhere in the history of my dad spends 4 years being a paratrooper in World War II. So my dad's a veteran, and it's really funny. My dad never talks so much about that era of his life, but he was at Fort Bragg, played Pinehurst every day, and he was in charge of the maintenance of the government golf course at Fort Bragg. And go over with his buddies and play Pinehurst, and that's how he got to know all the characters, Pinehurst, Donald Ross, and all that group that was there at that time. And so after World War II, he went to college in Rollins, and that's where he met my mom. And that changed his life because, as you know, he was number 2 on the men's golf team, and my mother was number 1. So you have to understand that started the next era of his life. He came back to Indianapolis.
Now I got to ask you a story about your mom, is it true? Because I spent a day with your dad at French Lick, and he was telling the story about how he went to pick her up for a date, and he went around the back because he thought her.
Well, I have a daughter named Lucy, and my grandmother was named Lucy. And my grandmother was relatively well-to-do, and she didn't think much of Pete. And my dad was from a small town in Ohio, and Lucy was in Perry, which I'm named after. That was her husband. It's my mother's mom and dad. just didn't take to people right away. But if you know my dad, once you get to know him, you can't not love him. There is a great story. As they were standing on top of the stairs to walk my mother down to meet the bride, she said, "I'm not going to marry that guy." And my grandfather was a judge. He said, "Oh, don't worry, just marry him tonight. We'll have the party. I'll get it annulled in the morning."
True story.
True story. They've been married for what, 50 some odd years now. So.
Beautiful couple.